things up a little bit. Um, does anybody remember what chapter we were supposed to do next? We just finished chapter 15. You're supposed to take your history test today, but we are switching things up. Malcolm, what chapter were we supposed to go to?
Either chapter 18 or 19.
Yes, chapter 18. Perfect. Which was supposed to be modern France. But I was thinking about the rest of the year and how much time we have left, and we just do not have enough time to do all of that. So we are going to skip next week to chapter 21, which is about World War I. But so today we are going to kind of set the foundation for World War I. Now, in the next few chapters, there are two major things that the book was going to discuss. Number one is colonialism, and number two is industrialization. Does anybody know what the word colonialism means? Thank you, Malcolm. You and I are alone. We're just going to soldier on.
Everybody's colonizing and everybody's like finding new land and like separating from like where they're from.
Yes. Why do these countries, why are they colonizing? Because they want to travel, they want to see and meet new people. Jaden, why are they colonizing?
They're colonizing one to get a grasp of like the new world or a newer place. They're trying to probably get new materials that they wouldn't be able to find in there.
Yep. And for money, right? So if England colonizes India, which it does, is it going there to help the Indian people? What is it going to get from India? What does England get from India? Toussaint?
Spices.
They get spices, they get tea, they get minerals, and who gets all of that stuff? Is it like they share it with India? Do they give it to everybody in England? Who gets all those spices? Malcolm?
The king or queen?
The king or queen, the people at the top. Yeah. So the more countries, the more places you can colonize, the more money you will get. So during the 17 and 1800s, there is the colonial period where countries like England, France, Spain, Germany, all of the European countries try to colonize as much land as they can, because the more that they colonize, the more that more money they get. Now, all of this leads to war, we will see, but it leads to the globalization of the word. Have any of you ever heard what globalization, that word, before? So can anybody raise their hand and tell me what it might mean? Thank you, Malcolm.
Globalization is spreading out like your kingdoms and like around in like other countries, other places. Therefore, you get more stuff and you get more minerals and things like that.
Yeah, that's true. Globalization means connecting the globe. Today, where is everything made? When Daniela is buying all of her Riverdale merch, where is that made? Toussaint?
China.
It's made in China, right? But China ships all of the stuff here. Where do they come up with the ideas for iPhones? Where did they design this iPhone? Does anybody know? Jaden?
Like maybe like in Japan or something.
It's a good guess. Does anybody know what country Apple belongs to, where Apple has started? Malcolm?
India?
Nope. Nobody knows who created the company Apple. Jalen?
China.
Nope. Good guess. Tucson?
I mean, like the person, like
No, you can tell me the person, but like what country has created the iPhone?
the U.S.
Yeah, it was Steve Jobs and Steve Wojnarowski were the two guys who created Apple. And their headquarters are in Palo Alto, just outside of San Francisco. It's called Silicon Valley. Have you ever heard of this word, Silicon Valley? Silicon Valley is where Microsoft, Apple, Google, Epson. What's the company that makes all the printers? Anybody know what? I can't remember. You know what the printers are?
HP.
HP. All of those companies are founded and reside just out San Francisco in a place called Silicon Valley. So they're designed here. Apple designs and makes all their software here. But where are iPhones made? They're designed here, but we don't make them here because that would be expensive. Paying Americans is expensive. Where do we make them, Tucson?
China.
China. So an iPhone is designed here. So it looks cool, right? Looks all sleek. But it's made in China. That is an example of globalization. Is that starting to make sense? Does anybody know what country designed and created Mercedes-Benz automobiles? Jalen? Sorry, Jalen?
Italy?
A good guess. Mercedes-Benz is Lamborghini. For anything that ends in an I, that's Italy. Well, who makes Mercedes-Benz? Jalen?
Germany.
Germany makes Mercedes-Benz. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Volvo, Sweden. But does anybody know where they actually make Mercedes-Benz automobiles? They do make some in Germany, but where else do they make them? Malcolm?
Oh, no. I was thinking Toyota. That's, yeah.
Toyota's in Japan, yeah. But this same process would work for Toyota. Jalen?
Here in the U.S.
Exactly. There is a Mercedes-Benz factory in West Virginia. Now, all of this is to say that today we live in a very globalized society. I myself have been to Europe, to South America, and it's easy. You guys could buy a ticket to Europe for $300. The same amount of money that it costs to buy a PlayStation, you could get a trip across the seas. Could people live like this in the 1400s? Did 1400s was like stuff made in China and shipped all over? No. So what we're talking about during the last 200, 300 years, globalization. So Europe starts to colonize all of the other continents. They start to colonize Asia. They start to colonize Africa, the New World, the subcontinent of India, the Middle East, because they're getting all that money, right? And once they colonize them, they become connected. Is everybody still with me? So we have colonization and globalization. So in the United States, one of the saddest things the United States was ever involved in was the Triangle Trade. And it involved Europe, North America, and Africa. And there were three things that were traded. What do you think that Europe traded with Africa and to a lesser extent, America? Malcolm?
Slaves and sugar.
That's a good guess. Those come from a different place. What do you think Europe is trading? Like what they're giving, not what they're getting, what they're sending out. Jaden? Sorry, go ahead, Jaden.
Tobacco.
Good guess. That's one of the things they're getting. They're not selling it. Jalen?
Like jewels, like jewelry and stuff.
Good guess. Let's start. I'll start with the easier one. That one's a little more complicated. What do you think they were getting from Africa in the colonization age of the world? What were they getting from Africa in the Triangle Trade? Toussaint? Sorry, 1 second, dude. Go ahead, Toussaint.
Gold.
Maybe some gold. But during the 15, 16s, and 1700s, they were getting something that was not as cool as gold. Quante?
They were getting slaves.
They were getting humans, right? So part of this globalization, European ships would go down to Africa where they would pick up people. We're going to get back to what they were trading. They were picking up people. Then they'd take those people from Africa to the New World, where they would trade those people who worked on plantations to grow what? Anybody
Cotton.
know? They would grow cotton. Yeah. What else would they grow? Malcolm?
Tobacco.
Tobacco, right? The people used to love to smoke. Toussaint, what else would they get?
Oh, I'll say tobacco.
Tobacco. But there's
Yeah.
one of everybody's favorite things that everybody loves, but nobody wants to grow it. Malcolm?
Sugar.
Sugar. Tobacco, cotton, sugar, coffee. So they would take, Europeans would go to Africa, they'd pick up humans, they would go to the New World and trade those humans who were going to work on the plantations to grow cotton, sugar, coffee, all of that stuff. And they would trade the humans for all of that stuff. Then they would take the coffee, sugar, cotton, materials, and then they would take that back to Europe, where they would trade that for guns, textiles, and manufactured goods, right? Then they'd take those manufactured goods, go back to Africa, trade guns and textiles for humans, then take those humans back, and that was the triangle trade. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's extremely scandalous and sad, but that was a globalized network. Could they have done that in the Middle Ages? No, they didn't have maps. They didn't know the New World existed. They didn't have guns. So that is an example of this modern world. Is everybody still with me? So they are connecting, globalizing, and they are colonizing. Europe colonized the New World. They colonized parts of Africa, and they are connecting it, right? And so for 300 years, you see as Europe kind of spreads its tentacles, I guess, for lack of a better word, to colonize, connect, and trade. The last thing that we're going to talk about is the industrialization. Today, this is going to get a little abstract, so try and stay with me. Today, I am wearing a picture of, who is this on my shirt? This G, Jalen?
Godzilla.
That is Godzilla. Does anybody know what country created Godzilla? Jalen, you're on a roll.
Japan.
Japan, right? Does anybody know how Godzilla was created? This is the original, not like, I haven't seen all the new ones. But how was the original 1960s, 1950s Godzilla created? Quante?
By like taking pictures and then putting it all together to make a.
Yeah,
Is that
but
one?
sorry,
I'm not
in the
sure.
story, like the origin story.
Oh,
Like how
Oh,
was
I don't know.
Godzilla created like in the movie? Does anybody remember? Like, was he just like a giant monster that was chilling? Was like, oh, what's up? I'm going to crush your cities. How did Godzilla come to be? Malcolm?
Like they were drilling inside the ocean, and then he like came out through tectonic plates.
I think that's the new one. Godzilla was originally created by radiation from from nuclear testing and explosions, right? So Godzilla is a monster created by atomic bombs. What is the only country that ever has had nuclear bombs dropped on it? Jalen?
China.
Good guess.
I mean, not.
You can correct yourself. Who is it?
Wait, I
Not
never.
China. It is who? Toussaint?
Japan,
Japan. Do you remember what two cities were bombed? Toussaint?
Nagasaki, and Hiroshima.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? And so Godzilla is a huge monster that crushes cities, and it's created by nuclear weapons. Do you guys talk about metaphors in Miss Alanise's class? You know what metaphors are? What a metaphor is? Malcolm, what's a metaphor?
When you say something to like bring up an example for something else.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's an image that represents something else. So like a dove. Does anybody know what a dove is a metaphor of? Quantity, is your hand up? Quantity, do you know what a dove is a metaphor for?
Like grief, because you usually see them at like funerals and stuff, like white doves that they show.
Yeah, that's
or
true.
like tranquility or something, like peace.
Yes, the peace, exactly. White doves are a metaphor for peace, right? Just like rainbows are a metaphor for something. So a metaphor is a symbol or something that means something else. So what do you think Godzilla is a metaphor for? And I'm not being silly, I'm like, honestly. They created in the 50s, like just a couple years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki had been leveled. Godzilla is a huge monster created by atomic bombs that crushes cities. What do you think it is, Jaden?
It's a show like it's probably a metaphor for like to show like nuclear like the nuclear like weapons are literally monsters and like how like and like it show like the damage and what it destroyed.
Exactly. So before nuclear weapons, could human beings destroy the planet? No. Could they destroy a city even? No. They could shoot it up full of holes and blow up some buildings. But today, could humans wipe out life on Earth if we wanted to?
Yes.
Yeah. The United States and Russia alone have enough nuclear bombs to kill everything on this planet over 10 times. And that's not including China and India and Pakistan and the rest of them. So Godzilla is a monster that crushes, destroys, and eats people. It's created by nuclear weapons. Now, the reason that I'm saying that is, in the Middle Ages, how many people do you think you could kill with a sword before you got tired? Seriously. My buddies used to have this messed up question. How many kindergartners do you think you could kill with a sword? I don't know, like 15? That's messed up. That was back in high school. But how many people do you think you could honestly kill? This sounds scandalous, but stay with me. How many people do you think you could kill with a sword before you got tired or somebody just grabbed you and put a stop to the whole nonsense? Malcolm, how many people do you think you could get?
1 through 6, somewhere in
1 to
between.
6, maybe, right? Just doing some like Samurai Ninja Gaiden stuff. How many people, Jaden, before you got tired? Or before somebody
only
got
say 1 because like 1, if you kill someone, like everyone's gonna find out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
2, like holding a sword is like it's not as easy as TV or anything makes it seem. Like holding a sword, like swords are like are pretty heavy.
Swords are heavy. What if you stick it in somebody and it gets stuck? Or what if you stick it in somebody and they turn around and grab you and you're trying to finish them off? Now, all this sounds crazy, but try and stay with me. Quante, how many people do you think you could get? Last person.
I think around 5 if I'm feeling myself, 5. Like if the adrenaline's pumping, but nothing over that.
And that is assuming, right, that you have, that they don't know you're coming and that you don't get tired. You're good cardio, right? The reason that I say that is, how many people do you think you could get if you had an AR-15? Jalen.
At least I would say 20.
Okay. So you're right. That's a terrible thing, and I don't want to go too far down this. But the point is that industrialization takes weaponry and makes it into a monster. Even today, we have this problem, right? They didn't have to have school shooting, scenarios in class when I was a kid. They didn't have to have those back in the 1800s because how much damage could you do? But industrialization takes warfare from a bunch of guys trying to thwack each other with a sharp stick to people just being able to press a button and mow other humans down. Did you get that? So when we talk about World War I and World War II, next week, we're going to start talking about World War I. It's all of these things that come together. Was there a world war in the 1700s? Malcolm?
Because there couldn't be one. Like, it took too long just to get to the New World to, like, from Europe. It's
Yes. You couldn't have a world war, exactly. You couldn't have a world war in the 1700s because transportation was too slow and the world wasn't connected through globalization, right? So you can't have a world war because China and Africa aren't involved in your petty squabbles between France and England. Did you get that? You can't have a world war because there's no globalization. You can't have globalization because there wasn't enough colonization. And finally, you can't have the death and destruction before World War I and World War II because you did not have industrialization. Did everybody get that last point? So World War I will be especially traumatizing to the world because they still fought. You guys ever see like a Napoleonic movie or war thing and everybody's like marching with their bright colored uniforms, right? They got like red and blue and they're all marching in a line. They had to do that because a musket is very inaccurate. And can you fire a musket very fast? No, you got to like pour the thing and ram the thing. You can fire maybe 2 or 3 bullets. So everybody would march. The problem with World War I is that they have a lot of those same kind of techniques of just running at the enemy. But now, instead of muskets, these guys got machine guns. Industrialization turns the wars of the 20th century from just local conflicts into a world war. A Maxim machine gun. Have you guys ever seen a Maxim machine gun? It has like a big barrel, and then it has like the thing out in the front, and that barrel is water because the gun shoots so many bullets so fast that the barrel will melt. So you're shooting bullets, and then the barrel just melts and you can't shoot anymore. So they had to create a cooling system. So you have a war where people are still running, but now you have machine guns. You have chemical warfare, mustard gas that is invisible. People are running around. You breathe in the gas. It burns your lungs and you die. They have artillery shells that can fire over the curvature of the earth. And so World War I and World War II will kill millions of people. And they could not have existed before the 20th century because of those 3 things. Everybody get that? So today, you're going to take your test. I'm missing science tests from, I think, Toussaint, Quante, and Jaden. I'll still accept them. Just like take them. You have your book open. And today you have your history test on chapters 13 through 15. You can turn it in anytime before Friday. I'm not overly concerned. You can use your book, but please turn in your science tests and your history tests. Starting Friday, we're going to start talking about World War I in chapter 21. Everybody clear on all of that? Cool. All right. I'm assuming that Danielle